Once in a generation comes a moment of television that will be forever remembered for uniting us as a people, a community, a civilization. This was such an episode, described as classic, relevant, and of course, important. But you won't hear that from me. From the Twilight Zone comes one of its most self-celebrated, pretentious episode ever, featuring one of the most annoying characters to ever hit the small black and white screen. It's a futuristic world of smart lights, remote starting automobiles, home delivery, and everyone is talking about alien visitors. Oh yeah, the middle class are classless. This terrible episode was written by Rod Serling and directed by Ronald Winston. As always, the alternative theories mentioned within may cause anxiety, rage, and disbelief, but that's why you're here, I hope. And kindly consider leaving a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Now, it's time to release the snark and meet the monsters are due on Maple Street. Maple Street is an idyllic place full of happy children, happy neighbors, complete with ice cream delivery. Neighbors can freely park their car in the street or water their lawn with impunity. In a flash of light, an unexplainable phenomenon, everything would change. After something flies over the neighborhood, the power in television cut out. Pete can't fix his door, and old lady Clara won't get her casserole recipe. A crowd ensues, already getting bitter, antsy, angry. You'd think someone turned off Twitter or something. The residents get more suspicious when they learn that portable radios won't work, cars won't start, and anything electric or gas won't operate. Neighbors Stephen and Charlie decide to walk into town, something a rational person would do. But Tommy, a young boy, begs them to stay. Why? Because of the aliens. Tommy whips up a fantastic story, literally from his comic books, that it is all a conspiracy with the help of aliens, disguised as a human family in his neighborhood. The adults brush off such comical fantasies, but deep down, Tommy had planted a seed of mistrust. Tensions immediately build as Les's car starts by itself. Theories, crackpot theories, surface just as quickly. Les is judged as an oddball because he did not witness the object flying above. His neighbors make public his strange habits by mistaking his insomnia for something more sinister.
I've never seen that. I've never seen anybody drive their garbage down to the street and then bang the hell out of it with a stick. I've never seen that.
By nightfall, Charlie begins his new habit of stalking Les and drinking beer. Meanwhile, a new conspiracy brews over Steve's hand radio, a shortwave communication device that raises more suspicions. The arguments heat up a notch. The crowd loses its calm until a shadowy figure, a silhouette of a man, perhaps a disguise, approaches the neighborhood. This is when Tommy, oh that innocent-looking boy, tells everyone it's the monster. Don returns with a shotgun, but Steve pulls it away from him. As the figure walks near, steady, no words, not a hint of doubt, Charlie decides to be that guy, grabs the shotgun from Steve, and shoots at the shadow, dropping him to the concrete. It was Pete Van Horn, the only person smart enough to walk to another neighborhood without Tommy noticing. Guilt, remorse, and panic sets in. The mob chases Charlie, throws stones at houses with glass. With a bloodied face, Charlie begs and trades the name of the real alien in exchange for his life. He blames Tommy. The crowd roars, cheering a new body for sacrifice. Steve screams for calm. Tommy and his mother run away. The neighborhood turns into an all-out sideshow. Lights flash on and off. Lawnmowers and cars start on their own. The mob blames everyone and starts grabbing anything they could find to use as a weapon against one another. A riot begins. Looking down from a hilltop, the aliens from another planet, outside their spacecraft, watch and enjoy the riot they manifested. Making overly generalized, stereotypical comments about Earthlings, They brag about their strategy to conquer the planet, one suburb at a time. A strategy written for them right out of a comic book. The theme of the episode is mob violence, and it wasn't subtle. By denying basic technological conveniences, we see individuals cope, well, some at least, but as a collective, the crowd gets mighty demanding. Considering its production during the Cold War, we see some parallels, deliberate or not, to nuclear war anxieties. An intruding object enters from space, an electromagnetic pulse follows, takes out energy and communication infrastructures, and the daily routine of life is ended. Without public works or government-provided services, the crowd is left aimless, leaderless, untrustworthy to make their own decisions. Replace the Soviet Union with interstellar aliens who disrupt the American ice cream-loving capitalist way of life, and we see a story of how fragile our community makeup is. But was there an alternative theory? This story wouldn't work in a rural farm community. It needed people representing a mob with illusions of individuality. Thus, a suburb was chosen over one representing something more urban. Suburbs in America really gained their popularity after the end of World War II. With it came obstination, criticism, and envy. The idea of the middle class owning land underneath their feet, not used for agriculture sprawled over once farmland, is considered a financial, political, and a social threat. Financial because of the exodus of the tax base, political from the switching allegiances of one entrenched political philosophy to another, social, the results from unsettling and resettling from one attribute, whether that is economical or ethnicity, to another, from families voting with their feet. In other words, it's about tribal separation. Living in an existing economic or ethnocentric district in an urban center is revered as very positive and a champion symbol of diversity and representation. But living in an existing economic or perceived ethnocentric district in a suburban center is labeled as very negative and dangerous to others who don't live there. Even in today's standards and sensitivities, we see the episode highlight the bane of suburbia. The automobile, the symbol of personal mobility and the individual freedom to travel without a schedule or turnstiles. Do-it-yourself home improvement? Why, that's using non-union labor. And let's not start with firearms. Each of these three are depicted with suspicion and death. I mention tribes because we see the residents of Maple Street as falling angels, better put, heretics, who took Exodus out of the benevolent utopia of the big city, where they could have been provided government services, protection, and control. Without a savvy personality to lead them, they descend into chaos and anarchy in only a few hours. Weaker tribes are silenced, conquered as you will, by the stronger ones. The community of Maple Street are considered primitives. The middle class would have been better off had they taken home behind concrete walls in smaller living quarters like the serfs of the Middle Ages. If you didn't like this theory, here's another one. The people of Maple Street were the communists. Stick with me here. Immediately, we see a planned neighborhood that works. Everyone is happy and gets ice cream. Did you see any money change hands? While it doesn't have the sickle, we get the hammer. The mob is the collective and everyone is equal until they're not. And like a page out of Animal Farm, there is jealousy when somebody has something others do not. Self-starting cars and lawnmowers, automatic lighting, or the ham radio. To this day, in certain closed societies, communication to the outside open world is met with capital punishment. Steve's ham radio was a symbol to receive news and ideas outside the prospective norm of the Maple Street community. Why, they might be considered alien. Look at Les, who makes a lone monologue. He stands by himself for himself, with his own ideas and opinions. His independence is received with hostility. It's not welcomed here. If you did that in some places today, it would result in government minders, even local block apparatchiks volunteering to keep an eye on you. What does that make the aliens into? Let's set aside keeping the budget down and see them for who they are. The outsiders look like you and me, yet they have more money, better technology, and are infamous for sticking their noses into foreign affairs. The aliens might as well be the CIA, overthrowing political structures one region at a time via sneaky, underhanded measures. But what am I talking about? That's pure fiction. I don't like this episode. When I saw this coming up on my list, I figured the thing I would object the most was the self-loathing, virtue signaling how truly terrible people are. If you read the Twilight Zone Companion written by Mark Zickery, you'll learn how Rod Serling was misquoted when commenting on his story of one about minorities needing a scapegoat. Well, okay. It's nice to learn that even in the 60s, the media was gaslighting everyone. But having watched it for my analysis series, what disappoints me the most is the dialogue. We have reasonable adults who are about to do reasonable things, until the real antagonist shows up. That's Tommy. He single-handedly ginned up the mob.
It's the monster.
Twice. And in my opinion, is emotionally responsible for the oddball, crazy, and insane behavior. Tommy's story about the aliens he read from a comic book is both comical and cartoonish. It's a half-hour show with commercials, and they have to accelerate, amp up, and exaggerate things to set the premise. But come on. Am I to believe that an old woman who was raised during the telegraph would storm out into the street because the phone cuts out? By the way, she didn't see the flying object either, but did she get called out? No. I bring up Tommy because this shows a difference between an antagonist and the villain. The aliens on the hilltop were the villains. They are the big baddies, with the big plans, pulling the virtual strings. The neighbors of Maple Street are the pawns and behaved exactly as the aliens expected. It's Tommy who antagonized everyone with his kooky theories. Had he stayed inside playing the 1960 version of Pong, none of this would have happened. If you asked me if there was any redeeming value, I would point to a couple nice touches. We learn about Les having trouble sleeping. He later is seen enjoying a glass of warm milk. Ever wonder why Pete Van Horn said nothing as he approached the mob during the night? He never saw them. He's badly nearsighted. And it's always a treat to watch Claude Akins. I swear, give him a bad script and he'll turn it into Shakespeare. I would have enjoyed the episode more if we never saw the aliens or revealed the mystery of the flying object, leaving everything ambiguous and to our imaginations. That's the thing about stories like this. We can't be left to think for ourselves. We must be told the message, no matter how on the nose it is.
Stop! He's already dead.
Frankly, because Aliens is a cheap twist and a trope that will resurface later in the series. At the risk of upsetting advocates of this episode, I see the world as a dystopian one. In other words, this isn't our universe, but one that looks familiar. Dystopia resembles somewhat or greatly to reality that is under distress from things such as paranoia and violence. The world of the monsters are due on Maple Street is one where people are near their breaking point. Aliens are beginning their invasion, and society plans their day-to-day life around a comic book. Now, that wouldn't happen here, would it? You're going to find people fall over their feet for this episode, but you didn't stick around this long to get that here. 1 dimension out of 5. It does have a couple tropes. Tag them Dystopia and because aliens. This is Mr. G of Synergy leaving you with these final words.
Is remember to keep looking up.
Check out other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.
And I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. It's the real